Hey guys, it's Dalton with DK Strength here, and today I'm walking you through my general total body warm-up. This is going to be a complete body movement that you can do pretty much before any other workout, no matter what you're doing that day, and involves pretty minimal equipment. The only thing I'm really using is going to be a lacrosse ball that you can pretty find at any sporting goods store, along with a $25 foam roller that you can pretty much find at Walmart, Amazon, or any of the above. A couple things in regards to today's warm-up, because this is a specialized warm-up. A good warm-up is not only going to get you prepared for that day's exercise, but think into the future. It's going to provide you with general rehab and prehab that are going to keep you mobile and stable in the right places. And so as you're going through today's warm-up, what I encourage you to do is not skip over the things that look monotonous, such as the breathing, such as the soft tissue work that we do beforehand. These are all going to be very important steps. The more that you get into your fitness journey, the more bound up you get, and that will give you the longevity that most people are looking for. So pay close attention today to some of the details, as yes, you see that I am wearing a nasal strip here. That is for general purposes of trying to just promote diaphragmatic breathing. So when we're going through that, pay special attention to how I'm breathing, as it constitutes and really contributes to the overall effectiveness of the warm-up. Hope you guys enjoy it.
Alright guys, so the first thing that we're starting out with is a little bit of soft tissue work. As you can see in the video here, I'm working on my feet, just hitting a variety of different angles with the ball. I'm pulling my toes back towards me, pushing my toes out against me, hitting the back, front, and both sides of the foot. The biggest thing here is to just use something that you're comfortable with, that you can push yourself a little bit with. So if you're not as comfortable with the hard surface of the lacrosse ball, feel free to move down to a golf ball, tennis ball, or anything similar in the meantime. So you may be asking why we do this. The reason that we do this is because not only do you have fascia lines that begin and end at the hands and feet, so they are a very central point in your overall training, but they start to increase the overall proprioception, or the feeling you have in those spaces, being that your feet are primarily responsible for gripping the ground as well as your hands gripping the barbells. We can kind of start to wake up some of those muscles that might have been dormant from wearing heavy duty type shoes, high heels, or anything else of that nature. Not only that, but we have different areas of pressure points that typically start to build up over our daily lives, especially as the more that we sit in cars, sit at desks, and basically do a lot more sitting. There's going to be overall areas that build up a little bit more tension than others. Those are a couple of the ones that we're trying to target with the soft tissue work as well, thinking in terms of longevity. The final piece of soft tissue work that we're working on today is going to be focusing on the suboccipital muscles underneath your cranium. These are muscles that can get deeply tense as the more that we sit and get a more forward head posture from texting, typing on a computer, or just sitting at a desk for far too long. And as with all of these other soft tissue movements, I like to do this for anywhere from 1 to 2 minutes per side, rotating per side, and then just based on how I feel that day. If I'm a little bit sore from the day before, maybe a little bit more soft tissue work is needed, and other days is not. Starting off with a couple basic ones, we have knees to chest and feet to butt. These are going to be just some general leg stretches that will start getting you moving and the blood flowing, and start warming up those quads and hamstrings, especially on your leg days. One thing to think about with this movement is to keep your knees directly below you, get up on your toes, maintain your breathing, and for a pro level tip, reach your hand above your head for a little bit of an extra stretch. Here we have zombie walks or leg kicks, another general hamstring stretch that will move the hamstring through a full range of motion. Make sure that you're keeping up on your toes as well as maintaining your breathing throughout the movement. Here we're going to more focus on your inner leg, your adductors, or your groin muscles. A couple things to keep in mind: make sure you're driving through the heel with the ankle stacked directly above the foot and the knee stacked directly above the ankle. If you are unable to do any of these things, you may have to do some preliminary mobility work to get there. Don't start to get lazy now. Take note of how you're moving. Depending on where you're tight that day, whether it's your hips, shoulders, neck, or any of the above, you can use those as cues as you might need to focus on a little bit later on in that day, depending on what your workout calls for and what's feeling a little extra tight. As you can see, we moved into one of my favorites, the hamstring sweep. Simply point your toe to the ceiling, reach your hands as far back as you can while keeping your hips neutral, and feel the hamstring stretch, especially towards the top of the hamstring. In my opinion, one of the trickiest but most important movements of the day here is the lunge twist twist. Not only is this going to continue waking up your feet and lower limbs, but it's going to challenge your stability as you're rocking back and forth. A couple things to take note of here is as you twist, try to keep your knee stable and not let it go with you, while keeping an upright posture throughout the movement. One thing to note is that I typically do all of these movements on the move. I did them stationary in this case to show them for the video, but I am moving typically throughout all of these movements, so feel free if you have the space in your gym to do so as well. And you can see the inchworm twist twist. Basically the same cues as a plank. Make sure the hips aren't sinking and the lower back isn't taking the brunt while looking your hands to the ceiling in both directions. Don't get out of that position too quickly because we have the world's greatest stretch. A couple things to take note of in this movement, as it is a pretty global movement. Try to get your feet as close to the hands as you can with your feet fully flat on the ground. If you cannot get your foot fully flat on the ground in this movement, try moving it back towards your other foot until you work up the flexibility to get there. From there, as in with the inchworm twist twist, you're looking your inside hand up to the ceiling to get full rotation through the T and C spine while trying to keep the back leg as straight as you possibly can to make sure that the hip flexor is getting stretched as well. As always, try to keep your hips as square to the ground as you possibly can. Moving into the final movement-based stretch of the day, we are doing the one-legged RDL. A couple of the points that I like to make when making this specific movement is that this isn't a normal RDL where you're going to have dumbbells in your hands. As you can see, I'm reaching out ahead of me, almost making this turn into an upper body stretch as well. I try to think pushing my heels and hands away from each other and stretching them out as far away from each other as I possibly can while focusing on activating that hamstring in the lower leg. Most people will screw up this movement by allowing the up leg hip to rotate towards the ceiling. Try to keep your hips as square to the floor as you can while making sure that that stretch and activation is focused on the bottom hamstring. Moving into one of the final segments of the warm-up, here you'll see in the video that this maybe doesn't look like a whole lot. However, diaphragmatic breathing is something that I take for granted for far too long and is something that I think everybody would benefit from. Simply before you start these next movements, lay on the floor for anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute, just breathing in through your nose, out through your mouth, and making sure your stomach is expanding. Put your hands on your stomach as I am to make sure that we are cueing the proper diaphragmatic breathing. The reason I like cueing diaphragmatic breathing just prior to this is because we are moving into the McGill Big 3, a complete core activation exercise that will help protect your lower back. Here you can see that I have my hands directly underneath the arch of my back as I flatten my hands into the ground and slightly lifting my shoulders off the ground for anywhere from a 2 to 3 second hold. Make it 5 to 10 reps depending on how you're feeling that day. Continuing on with the McGill Big 3, here you can see that we have a standard side plank. I'm doing it with the staggered stance, although if you want to get a little bit brave, you can stack the feet up, or as you'll see in a second, on the other side, if this is a little bit too challenging for you, reach your other hand around, grab your opposite shoulder for a little added stability. Last but not least, we're moving into the bird dog. The bird dog is a standard movement used to increase core activation. As you can see, we're starting in a standard tabletop position with our hands directly below our shoulders and knees directly below the hips. The most common mistake people will make with this movement is trying to reach their hands and leg up to the ceiling. No, one of the cues that I like to give is put as much space in between your hands and feet as possible when you are reaching out the opposite arm and opposite leg from this position. Being that one of our main goals is to wake up some of the dormant postural muscles, we're going to hold this movement for anywhere from 3 to 5 seconds per side, doing them for anywhere between 5 and 10 reps per side. And as if I didn't say it throughout the video, make sure your breathing is maintained throughout the movement. In through the nose, out through the mouth.